Hey guys, welcome to day 2 of mental disorders. Today's topic is depressions and anxiety disorders. So let's get started here. Okay, this shouldn't take too long. One really interesting topic, and this is something, these are two of the most common mental disorders. We all know somebody, even if we look in the mirror, who has anxiety or who has depression. So there are normally I have my students write these down. There are a few more that I want to talk about, but these are common depressions. You've got major depression, major depressive disorder, and basically it's very easy to get diagnosed with depression. All you got to do is tell a doctor that you've been had feelings of hopelessness, feelings of like there's no point in living, and that you have no motivation and your mood has been low for at least 2 weeks. That doesn't sound like a lot of time, and it honestly it's not. But the 2 weeks at least gives doctors a lot of leeway to let you get the help that you may need. Now, if you go in there and you don't convince a doctor that you're depressed, then good for them. They're trying to help you out. But it doesn't take much to get diagnosed, and doctors, they'll throw antidepressants at anybody. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with antidepressants. I'm just saying that it's not hard to get a doctor to diagnose you with depression. Um, Let me explain to you what is depression. Depression is the opposite of vitality. Vitality is the word that means that you want to get up and you want to do something. Okay, you want to go for a walk, you want to go to the mall, you want to go out, of course, Um and depression is when you just want to just like not really do anything. And you get this feeling of there's no point in doing anything. Y- So it's not that depression is sadness. Depression is this for a lot of people is this feeling of hopelessness. There's no point in going on. You just want to lay around all day. Now, I get it. Sometimes you're tired and you want to do that. That doesn't mean that you're depressed. But if you do it for months on end, you might could be diagnosed with depression. Now, if it's mild and it lasts for 2 years or more, we call that persistent depressive disorder. So if you have a mild depression and you still manage to go to work every day and you still manage to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or wife and you just carry on, but you still feel like you're a little depressed, we call that persistent depressive disorder. And you have to have that for 2 years or more. And then there's bipolar. So think about what the prefix bi means. What is bi? Bi means two, like a bicycle has two wheels. Bipolar is when you have a cycle between mania and depression. We'll talk more about that in a second. So this is really sociology, but if you look at this graph, you'll notice that the red bars are bigger than the blue bars, and women do experience depression more than men. A lot of that has to do with hormones. However, women also experience feelings of happiness more than men, so it does seem to even out. And also, if you notice, women's depression tends to decline in later years. That could be attributed to menopause, which is a reduction in hormones. Men stay about the same. Okay. So, major depression, low energy, and low motivation for at least 2 weeks. I'm sure you wouldn't go to the doctor for just 2 weeks, but that's the minimum. That's the minimum. It includes feelings of worthlessness, like life is pointless. I don't even care anymore. Okay. Diminished interest or pleasure in most activities. So imagine if your friend said, "Hey, let's go do this. Let's go to that. Let's go to Six Flags." And you're like, "I just don't want to do it. I don't want to go to Six Flags. I don't want to go to the mall. I just want to sit here." Now, if you do that every now and then, that's fine. But if you do it for months on end, then you're probably depressed. Also, I have read that men express depression with anger. So if you have a dad or a grandpa who's just yelling and screaming all the time, he may be depressed. Okay, I'm not a doctor and neither are you, but a lot of men, their depression looks a little bit different. Okay, a lot of yelling, screaming, a lot of lashing out, a lot of drinking alcohol, and that's women too. That is a sign of depression. Okay. So, persistent depressive disorder, mild depression for 2 years or more. We're not talking serious suicidal depression. We're talking just, yeah, it's not too good. If you think you have this, I suggest exercise. I suggest eating more vegetables and salads. I suggest more sunlight. That happens to me. Okay. Bipolar. Bipolar is best taught through film, but what happens is you go through manic phases. Manic phase is a very energetic phase. You act almost like you're ADD. If you know somebody who is up 4 in the morning scrubbing the kitchen floor, or up 4 in the morning writing their novel or working on their car, um, then they might be bipolar. They might be going through a manic phase. In the movie Silver Linings Playbook, Bradley Cooper's character was manic. That's why he woke up his parents at 4 in the morning twice in the movie. And he's up all night reading. And he talks really fast. He was manic in that movie. Now, one thing you didn't see in that movie was he would crash. Then you'd be depressed. Notice this roller coaster on this picture here. If you're manic, then you're going to crash. Okay. You don't need to know the difference between bipolar 1 and 2, but it's a different cycle. Now, think about what kind of scan is this? What are we looking at? What kind of scan is this? This is not an MRI. It's not an EEG. It is a PET scan where you get injected with a radioactive substance, and then that substance attaches itself to your red blood cells. Now, check out on the left, May 17th. What's going on here? You got low brain activity. Then the next day, boom, you got lots of activity. And then a week later, this person was depressed again. That is bipolar. This person was going through a manic state in this middle one. So with bipolar, you've got depressed people don't want to do anything, no energy, no motivation, possibly suicidal, being manic. But being manic can be fun. It depends on how severe it is. You're happy, you're energetic, you have delusions of grandeur, like I can go to law school and medical school at the same time. You feel all this energy, you feel unconquerable. That's what it feels like to be manic. So hit pause if you want to take a look at this. Okay. Now, postpartum depression. Google Andrea Yates. This woman here, she lived in Houston with her husband Rusty, and she murdered her 5 kids. Okay. And she didn't have just normal postpartum depression. She had postpartum depression with psychosis, means that she was hearing voices. That's what psychosis means. It means you're hallucinating and you're hearing voices. She drowned her kids in the bathtub because she felt like the devil was coming after her kids. Most women with postpartum depression do not feel this way. She is an extreme case. Okay. If you have a child and then you're a little depressed for a few weeks, don't freak out. Make sure you hold your baby and attach to your baby. Fake it till you make it. And in a couple of weeks, you might feel better. Okay. But you need to be patient. There's a lot of hormones that go on when you have a baby. I don't know that from personal experience, but you get what I'm saying. This is something that I have, seasonal affective disorder. I own this light. It's $40 on Amazon. I've bought one twice. I use it. I use it even in the summer if I don't get to get outside very much. I use it a lot when it's cloudy for a couple of weeks at a time. It works for me. It may not work for you, but it works for me. Get out, get some sunlight. The best thing that you can do first thing when you get to school in the morning is to just sit there and let the sun shine on you. And it for me, it helps my mood. Okay. And it will probably help your mood too. Okay. Get outside. All right. I've already talked about that. All right. Guys, get on Amazon Prime, go to a show called Modern Love and watch this 30-minute show, episode 3. Episode 3. It's a good show, but I'm telling you, episode 3, this is the best video for bipolar. Okay. Modern Love, episode 3 on Amazon. Okay. So, what causes depression? Well, one, if you look at it from a biology point of view, it could be low serotonin. Now, it's a lot more complicated than that, but that is one biological cause of depression. Another cause of depression is irrational thinking. That is a cognitive perspective. So your thoughts can affect the way that you think. So, for example, let me give you an example. Let's say that you think that every single person in the school hates you. Okay, so and you believe that. Well, that is an example. If you are depressed because you believe that, then that is a reason why your thoughts can lead you to be depressed. Okay. If you're sitting there thinking, I will not be happy unless I can go to this specific college, or I won't be happy unless I get this boyfriend or this girlfriend or have this car. That is an example of how your thinking can cause you depression. So you need to change the way that you think to treat your depression. Okay. So, how do you treat depression? You could take antidepressant medication such as Prozac or what's called an SSRI, or you could get cognitive behavioral therapy, or you could do both. Okay. Both is pretty good. There are side effects, so look them up. Be careful before you get on antidepressant medication. Not you may want to, you may not want to. That's up to you and your doctor. Okay. Okay. So let's look at some multiple choice. Always hit pause before I give you the answer. A person who experiences prolonged episodes of severe unhappiness and loss of interest in life would most likely be diagnosed with. Okay, so loss of interest. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go to Six Flags. That's major depression. Okay. Kara alternates between periods of extreme euphoria when she's very talkative and overconfident and hyperactive, and times of profound sadness when she experiences feelings of hopelessness. So, this is the roller coaster. Okay. This is bipolar. Okay. Now, let's talk about anxiety. Anxiety, and these are the ones that I tend to focus on. Generalized anxiety disorder is the most common mental disorder in the world. I bet you a dollar your mom has it. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe she doesn't. Okay, but it is the most common mental disorder in the world. I have it, and I treat it with exercise, and then I sometimes meditate too. Generalized anxiety disorder is when you have anxiety over everything, but nothing specific. It's basically how you feel on a Sunday night when you're thinking, oh crap, I got to go to school tomorrow. That's kind of how it is, but all the time. Okay. When your mind is racing, you're thinking, oh man, I got to do this, I got to do that. That's basically what anxiety is. Now, if you have more extreme anxiety, you could have what's called a panic disorder. And I've actually seen this twice. I've had two students have panic attacks in my classroom. And basically, it sounds like this with literal tears coming out of their eyes. And I mean, I am not trying to be funny, I am not exaggerating. And you get chest pains, hyperventilating, and it hurts. I've never had a panic attack. One thing that can trigger a panic disorder or a panic attack are phobias. Phobias is when you have extreme anxiety over something specific. Okay. And then finally, social anxiety disorder. You can look at that and you can kind of guess what that means. It's like introversion to the extreme. Okay. So basically, we think anxiety is when your limbic system, your amygdala, and your hypothalamus are going a million miles an hour, and your frontal lobe is not telling that stuff to chill. That's a theory, but that's why changing the way you think can help. It's not perfect, but it can help. So, generalized anxiety disorder is a constant state of anxiety over nothing, but over everything. Okay. It's like anxiety over just everything in general, nothing specific. So, somebody says, "What's wrong with you?" It's just everything. Okay. Panic disorder, fear followed by chest pains, hyperventilating, and tears. Okay. Phobias. Okay. There's a lot of phobias. It's ridiculous the amount of phobias there are. The only one that I really ever test over is agoraphobia. Um, ag- Agoraphobia is this irrational fear, and all of these are irrational fears. It's where people are afraid of wide open spaces and they will not leave the house. Extreme cases would be people won't even go and check the mail. Okay. Or maybe they have safety zones. Maybe they won't cross a certain intersection. Or maybe they won't leave town. They live in a small town and they won't leave town. Or they won't cross a bridge. Um, it's partially genetic. You're kind of born with it, but it's triggered by trauma, maybe a car accident, maybe getting robbed or assaulted. But think about how comforting it is to have walls around you. Well, if you take that to the extreme, that's agoraphobia. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders, claustrophobia, fear of closed in spaces. Acrophobia is a fear of heights. Think of an acrobat, acrophobia. Pteromarinophobia, fear of flying. That's a big deal because if you have a job that requires you to fly, then you need to get that taken care of. And there's a bunch of other phobias. Here's one that some of you aren't going to like. In a class of 30, I always have somebody who really freaks out at this. Trypophobia. I think that's how you say it. Okay, sorry if that really bothers you. Okay, so now these are obsessive compulsive disorders. Now, some of these used to be anxiety disorders, and they are related to anxiety, but these are its own classification obsessive compulsive disorders. You've got OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. You've got hoarding. You've got body dysmorphia or body dysmorphic disorder. Trichotillomania. It's when people pull their hair. I saw one person eat their hair. I mean, I have a film. Excoriation, picking your skin, and I don't mean like you're on crack and picking your skin, but people who obsessively pick at their bumps and their freckles and stuff. And social anxiety disorder. I think that belongs here. I don't know if that's I'm not sure how that's classified. So, what causes all of this? What causes OCD type symptoms? Well, there are neurotransmitters in your nerves. There's one called GABA. GABA chills you out. If you drink alcohol, there's GABA in that. If you take a Xanax, there's GABA in that, or it messes with your GABA. And you can get on Amazon and order a bottle of GABA, and it might help you sleep. I take one every now and then. It doesn't kick in immediately, but by the next morning, I wake up pretty relaxed. Okay. Not enough to where I can't drive or anything, but it does help me to wake up a little calmer the next day. I don't take it every night though. But if you have too little GABA, you're going to have anxiety. If you have too little serotonin, you're going to have anxiety. Okay. So here's an interesting GIF: serotonin, happiness. If you're low on serotonin, you're going to be anxious and depressed. If you're in love, you're going to have all three. Oxytocin is the chemical that you get when you cuddle and when you pet your dog. And it's the chemical that after you've been dating for a month and it makes you want to get married and have kids and go to the grocery store and act like adults, like a real couple. That's oxytocin. Okay. So this is important. What is an obsession? What is a compulsion? An obsession is when you can't stop thinking about it. Like you may be obsessed with a video game, or you may be obsessed with that new kid that showed up and you have a crush. You may be obsessed with a video game and you can't stop thinking about it. That's an obsession. Obsession is up here. A compulsion is when you can't stop doing something, like washing your hands. Okay. Washing your hands. Okay. All right. And I don't mean like washing your hands before you eat. I mean like literally 50 times a day. Okay. Or you take 3 hour showers in hot, hot water. I'm serious. I'm not exaggerating. Okay. But a compulsion would be like every time I step on a crack, I have to count 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be a compulsion. Okay. So if you combine an obsession with compulsions, you get obsessive compulsive disorder. Obsessive compulsive disorder, go ahead and pause and read all this. Okay, these are examples of obsessions and examples of compulsions. Notice these are all behaviors. And notice this is all thinking. That's the difference between obsessions and compulsions. So check out this PET scan. What's going on here? You've got a normal brain. This is the frontal lobe. This is the back of the brain. So what's going on here? What's going on here in an obsessive compulsive brain? It's that frontal lobe. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, I got to check the locks. I got to check the locks. That's your frontal lobe being overactive. So obsessions come from the frontal lobe. Trichotillomania. I'm not saying this is totally different from OCD. But it's kind of like OCD where you obsess about a hair that doesn't belong and you just pluck it out. And these people will pull their hair. They'll pull it off their arm. They'll pull it off their head. Some of them will eat their hair. And you can imagine what that does to your insides. When you eat your hair, you get hairballs. This is called a Bezoar. And this is a surgery to get rid of a clogged hair in the intestine. I know that's gross, but that is from people eating their own hair. That's sick. That's maladaptive. Scoriation, I don't know much about it, but I can relate because I bite my fingernails. And anytime there is a ridge or something that isn't smooth, I always want to bite it off. Well, imagine you have a bump on your arm and you're like, ooh, I don't like that. You just scratch it off. It's an obsessive compulsive type disorder. You obsess about the bump and the imperfection, and then you pick it. Okay. Body dysmorphic disorder. I don't mean to pick on celebrities. We shouldn't judge celebrities from a distance. But when people get too much plastic surgery, and when they look in the mirror and what they see in the mirror does not match objective reality, and that leads to a lot of plastic surgery, a lot of the time, we call that body dysmorphic disorder. So check out Michael Jackson before and after. He got his skin bleached, he got his nose done, he got all kinds of plastic surgery. Let's take a look at some other examples. This is a guy who spent over $100,000 to look like a Ken doll. He looked in the mirror and said, I want to do this to my body. And then to even add to the confusion, now he comes out as transgender. So that's the same guy as before. So, okay, all right. Now remember, if you look in the mirror and what you see in the mirror does not match objective reality, we call that body dysmorphic disorder. Okay, she looks in the mirror and says, I'm anorexic. Yeah, I don't think so. Okay, here's a woman who spends way too much on plastic surgery. And social anxiety disorder, I don't think that belongs here. That's just an anxiety disorder. I don't think that's an obsessive compulsive disorder. But this cartoon is not realistic because somebody with social anxiety disorder would probably not even go to the party. These people would take a Xanax before they even went to the grocery store. You know why? Because they have to actually talk to the cash register person. That's pretty sad. These people, they probably are unemployed. If they're lucky, they can work from home behind a computer, so they never have to interact with anybody. Now remember, do not use the word antisocial to describe these people. Antisocial personality disorder is when people do really bad things and they do not feel remorse. That's different. Do not use the word antisocial to describe this. How do you treat anxiety? Well, you could take anti-anxiety meds, but the doctor's probably not going to give them to you if you're young. Doctors probably wouldn't give them to me. They'd say, try meditation, cut back on your coffee, but Xanax is an anti-anxiety medication, Klonopin, Valium. Okay, those are all anti-anxiety, and they are addictive. So be very careful. And these meds, they work with GABA. GABA is a neurotransmitter that chills you out. Okay. All right. So people who habitually wash their hands numerous times before going to bed most likely have a what? Okay. So washing your hands is a behavior. So this is not an obsession, it is a compulsion. Okay. Carl has recurring unwanted thoughts. Let me repeat, recurring unwanted thoughts. That's an obsession. The answer is E. Okay. There's actually an episode of Obsessed about somebody who she keeps obsessing about hurting her family, even though she's never done that. She obsesses about doing harm to her family. I think that's Trina. I think that's episode 2 of season 1, episode 2 of the show Obsessed. All of the following are anxiety disorders except, okay, so which one of these is not an anxiety disorder? Phobias are anxiety. That's an anxiety disorder. Panic disorder. The answer is C. The answer is C. Persistent, repetitive thoughts. Persistent, repetitive thoughts. Those are obsessions. Along with blank, abnormalities in neural circuits that use blank have recently been implicated in panic and obsessive compulsive disorders. Okay, so what chemicals are we talking about here? The answer is C, GABA and serotonin. Okay. Ren has unpredictable and repeated attacks of overwhelming anxiety that frequently leave him dizzy, nauseous, short of breath, and in tears. This is a panic attack. That is a panic attack. Phobic, like phobias, and panic disturbances are examples of which of the following kinds of disorder? These are anxiety disorders. And that's it. All right, have a nice day, guys.